17th century efforts to integrate Britain's colonies into a coherent, hierarchical imperial structure and
pursue mercantilist economic aims met with scant success due largely to varied forms of colonial resistance and conflicts with American Indian groups, and were
followed by nearly a half century of the British government's relative indifference to colonial governance.
So what exactly does this mean? And the big idea here is, throughout England's colonial period, these 13 colonies were left alone, largely. And this is what we call this solitary neglect. Except, by the late 17th century, England's looking at the colonies and going, hey, maybe we should regulate them.
Regulators! Mana!
Perhaps we should regulate them and we should enforce these laws that we had put in place, these mercantilist laws. And so under King Charles II, this process starts around 1680s. He kicks the bucket and King James II creates a thing called the Dominion of New England, formally established in 1686. And it basically includes all these colonies you see, all of the New England colonies, including New York and Jersey. And what it basically had in mind as a goal was these things. These are the goals, ladies and gentlemen. One, we're going to tighten up control. We're going to get these colonies and we're going to whip them into shape. We're going to stop colonial smuggling. You know, the colonies had a history, a pattern of kind of ignoring the navigation acts. They were trading with the French and the Dutch. They weren't using British ships. And so England wants to stop that smuggling. They want to stop the trade with their rival colonial powers. And there also is some benefits of this Dominion of New England in the minds of England, and that is they're going to defend the colonies from potential Native American and possibly French attacks. Remember, there was a long history of the Pequot War, King Philip's War, and so in 1686 we are going to shore up our defenses of our colonies. But mainly it has to do with regulating the colonies in terms of trade and enforcing those rules that the colonists were disobeying. So they create this Dominion of New England, and you need a guy to run it, and your boy that's going to run it is a guy by the name of Sir Edmund Andros, and he's the king's representative in the colonies. Problem is, this dude becomes very unpopular because he does things such as these. He starts restricting the town meetings, the press, the courts, the schools. He starts taxing without the consent of the legislative assemblies. So once again, you're getting this no taxation without representation. They're not using these slogans, but you see this happening. And these decisions create a whole discontent within these colonies. They feel like their rights are being violated, and Sir Edmund Andros becomes kind of like public enemy number one. Now, something happens. And it doesn't happen in the colonies, it happens way over in England, and it's a religious and political event called the Glorious Revolution. Now, before we get into it, I have a bit of a warning for you.
Warning. You are entering a restricted area. Return to where you came from, or be destroyed.
If you're looking for some British history and a real detailed look at the Glorious Revolution, look somewhere else. But I'm going to give you the basics so that you can understand it and, in essence, understand why the events unfold the way they do in the colonies. So here's the breakdown. James II is the King of England, and Parliament doesn't like James II. He wasn't a very popular leader, and a big reason for his unpopular opinion of him was that he was Catholic, and he was real cozy with the Catholic Church. And he also had some close ties with France. 1688, James II has a son who happens to be baptized Catholic. And suddenly now there's this real fear in England that something, Catholicism is going to be reestablished in England. And the people of Parliament, people who are the opposition to James II, make a deal with a Dutch man, the William of Orange, and his Protestant wife, Mary II. Mary happened to be the daughter of James II. Are you confused? Here's the breakdown. In essence, James II, who was really cozy with the Catholic Church, gets overthrown. During the glorious Revolution of 1688. And it's glorious because relatively bloodless revolution, nobody dies, or maybe a few, I don't remember, doesn't really matter, but the Protestant rulers, William of Orange and his wifey Mary, take over the throne, Mary of course being the daughter of King James II. Getting a text message, very popular. So this goes down. Parliament creates a English Bill of Rights in 1689, once again British history stuff, and it places further restrictions on the power of kings. And this glorious revolution has consequences in the colonies. This is what we need to care about as APUSH or U.S. history or just weirdos on the internet watching videos. Remember that Dominion of New England that was set up by King James II with all those rules in Sir Edmund Andros?
Denied.
It is falling apart. Following the Glorious Revolution, it will fall apart. The Dominion of New England collapses. In fact, in Boston, a Boston mob starts taking to the streets. Sir Edmund Andros, very unpopular, especially in the colony of Massachusetts. There's all this kind of colonial resentment. Andros and anybody affiliated with him are super unpopular, and Andros tries to get out of Boston in 1689, and Andros is arrested, and the Dominion of New England comes to a close. So, in essence, the events in Europe sparked this kind of rebellion in the colonies. And it's not just in Massachusetts, it's not just in Boston. Andros is arrested, and in other parts of the colonies, resistance to British policies spread. And there is this reaction when in the late 17th century, England's trying to kind of clamp down, regulate its colonies, and the colonies are so used to kind of doing things their way that they resist. And this last example happens in New York.
I want to be a part of it. New York, New York.
A guy by the name of Jacob Leisler rebels in New York, in the colony of New York. He is an immigrant from Germany, a militia commander, a merchant, and in 1689 he leads a rebellion, Leisler's rebellion. He starts to have this rebellion have some success. And what ends up happening, it is short-lived. His rule in the New York, the southern part of the colony, is not a long-term deal. But what he reveals, what the rebellion against the Dominion of New England reveals, is resentment about British policy. It's not anywhere near some sort of American Revolution, but in the late 17th century, you have this English imposing their will, the colonists kind of pushing that to the side. And the Dominion of New England comes to an end. Eventually, Jacob Leisler is captured. He's convicted of treason and executed. But you see these little moments of colonial resistance. Hopefully you learned something. If you didn't, watch it again. And if you still don't, Google it. Subscribe to Joe's Productions. Call your grandparents. They're old. They want to hear from you. Peace.